Hello, 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 and welcome in to Beyond the Den by Bear Claw Media. I am Chris Bolin, and I am joined, as always, by Ben Schleiger. Ben, how you doing, buddy?
Not too bad. We had some interesting football this past weekend in the FCS landscape. A little bit of head turns here and there of how stark some of the scores were. I mean, we saw some blowouts, we saw some games that were closer than we thought, and just overall, we saw just interesting teams in the first round. Whether it be a bad, last couple weeks of the stretch, and South Dakota State comes in to have a little JV game against New Hampshire, or just people kind of crap in the bed. Like Lamar just didn't really give much of a fight to Abilene.
Yet it was coming into the day, as I think tends to happen, as sorry, I got an ad blaring in my headphones as I try to pull up a box score. As it feels like it happens in most years, it's like this year feels like the year where they got it right. There's going to be competitive matchups in the first round. And you made a very interesting point, Ben, where there are a couple competitive ones. Yale, Youngstown State was crazy. Even Tennessee Tech, North Dakota wasn't a good game to watch, but if you stopped watching after the third quarter, that was a competitive game. Um, but I think they got the matchups right, like you said, maybe just to show kind of the land. It did a great job painting the picture of the landscape of college football, where you have a 7-5 Missouri Valley team in North Dakota, obviously the better team than like an 11-1 Tennessee Tech. Where I think it kind of showed where these teams actually line up conference to conference. And I say that, but kudos to you, Ben, because you pointed that out to me this morning, and I think you nailed it.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to look at it, like there was only one true upset, which in the first round, maybe a little bit dry, maybe a little bit chalky for the year. But three away teams did win. Illinois State went into Southeast Louisiana and just a boring, just gritty game where they just didn't let CELA get anything done. A team that normally scores a good amount of points was basically held in check the entire game. And Illinois State, kind of one of those, middle to upper middle Missouri Valley teams. People might have been like, "Oh yeah, we got a chance against them," but it's just one of those talent differences. I think offensively, both like pretty comparable teams. I think they both have a lot of praise you could give to either of them there. But I think the defense was the big swinging point for that. Is Southeast Louisiana might not have seen anybody as prepared for them and as highly recruited as Illinois State is. We make fun of the Missouri Valley because it's like, it's North Dakota State. It's their conference and who cares? But there's a lot of people that do an arms race every year to try to make it not that way. So Illinois State definitely one of those teams. And it just looked at it, it was like that's just kind of what the talent mismatch of a good Missouri Valley team versus the top of the Southland looks like. Unfortunately, we saw a similar thing with a decent CAA team going into a snowy South Dakota State and in Brookings, and it's like a scrappy UNH team got a lucky field goal.
Yeah, I hate to be, and I've never been on this side of the argument when you hear it a lot with the SEC and like the Big Ten versus the Big 12 ACC. It's just there are levels to it, and I think you're right. The South Dakota had like 5 players leave through the portal pretty late in the cycle that all went like Power Five FBS schools. So I think you're right. I think the talent level and just like I don't like the toughness is probably the word. The toughness of some of these Midwestern Missouri Valley teams just really shines through. I don't know. It sounds cliche, but it's like it's dreary in Vermilion, South Dakota. It's cold. There's nothing else to do but watch football and get tough. And we haven't even talked about the Coyotes, but like I think it kind of illustrates. And same with some of the other conferences. We didn't get any Big Sky games today. We'll have a few next week, but it's just I think it kind of shows there are levels to this, and as much as I want, and I'm sure you want, Ben, some of these underdog stories to kind of take off. I was pulling hard for Harvard. It didn't last long, but that type of stuff. Yale is awesome, but there are just kind of levels to it. I think when you get in that, maybe the fifth best Missouri Valley team probably is squarely in the top 25, and deservingly so.
Yeah, Harvard was a hard game to watch. I started my day with 2 quarters of that and really wish I didn't. It was just a bummer beatdown. Villanova, I mostly believed in them all year long. They're kind of like Mercer to me, is like they're a really good team, but they just have bad moments. And I was thinking Harvard was going to be able to get over their bad moment last week to Yale, in just kind of like a surprise, like bad beat. Like, not that Yale's a bad team, because obviously they won their game and Harvard didn't, but just in the sense of they shouldn't have lost that game by as much as they did. But whether it be the culmination of the season, injuries, or just schematically, Yale had Harvard's number all day long. Harvard came out and they were just flat. They were dry. It was like a turkey that wasn't cooked very well, but you got to just muster through at least a one thank you plate. Like, oh yeah, oh I'm full. That was very filling. Mm-hmm, yeah. But Harvard, like, their defenders were just a tick slower. Their coverage was a bit off. Villanova was just fixing to have a 50 burger no matter what. Like, just no matter how that game was gonna end up, like, it was always gonna be in Villanova's favor. It was just, you could see the difference between the CAA athletes and the Ivy League athletes. Both, everybody Division I players, but very different versions of Division I players. Harvard players were like, had a little bit of speed, a lot of strength, especially in the trenches, but like that that lack of speed really killed them in the run game too, because the D line got opened like a can of tuna every time. And just, you could see this just parting the red wave right there, and the blue player just shoo, gone. So that was pretty unfortunate. Shout out to Yale, one upset of the weekend, and against a good Missouri Valley team, a top 25 Missouri Valley team that I think deserved to be in it. They held tough against tough opponents this season. They had some games not swing their way. They definitely, had some lackings here and there, but their Walter Payton award finalist quarterback kept them in the game. In the first half, it looked like it was going to be a drubbing, and then just, it's one of those times where schematically you improvise and things go your way. And I really wish I turned on the second half of Yale, because that one went, whew, what is it? That's 36 points. Yeah, 36 points in the second half, 21 in the fourth quarter. Absolutely a scrappy team. I don't see them getting a win next week, but I'm excited to see what they do against Montana State, because I think that's probably the farthest an Ivy's traveled in decades.
Yeah, first ever Ivy League win in the FCS playoffs. I think everybody kind of earmarked Harvard as that team to get that done, but Yale, in truly just wild fashion, yeah, that
Well,
30
with those
plus
two
point
being
come.
rivals, that's going to be a bragging rights. Next year they're going to double dog it in their face, be like, "We beat you in the rivalry game, and we won a playoff game." Ugh. Not
Did
that
you
like
see
the Ivies are like that. They'll say it in a more posh, pinky up way, but like, for real, that's going to be a bragging right banner that they just shit on Harvard with all year long.
Did you see the tweet from the Yale admin? It was like, still have a perfect bracket, and they just had Yale going because they were at the bottom. They had them to the championship game, and then they just had Harvard losing, and they didn't fill out any of the rest of the bracket.
See, it's like that back east. It's petty. So good for them. They got those little jabs that they have to just whip out every so often and be like, "Oh yeah, who won a playoff game? Oh yeah, not you."
The two games left are both ones for me that I guess South Dakota Drake did find its way onto my TV very briefly, just because I wanted to see what the Dakota Dome looked like. But Abilene Christian was the other one, beating Lamar 38-20, and then South Dakota beat Drake 38-17. No real surprises here. Abilene, I think, Abilene's been up and down all year, but I think their ceiling is very high, which could bode well for them in the moving forward. But their floor is pretty low, which means they could pretty easily lose to the Stephen F. Austin team, which I think these two have already played, haven't they?
Yeah, I believe so. And also, I think this is one of those times where scheme really mattered. Just they came out, got a 24 points in the first half, and Abilene Christian, the little bit that I checked in on them, Stone Earl, like what a bad name,
Oh
badass
yeah.
name for a quarterback. He accounts for 4 touchdowns, but yeah, just Abilene has been just one of those teams that's floated around and done very good work. They just haven't gotten the kudos for it because sometimes in those bigger games or in the smaller games, they just haven't been able to cash all their chips in. But I think Abilene, very dangerous team. They've been dangerous all year long. This is finally one of those, feathers in their cap where they can be like, yeah, like we're a for real team. Like you gotta respect us. Like not just this game, but they beat Tarleton. We got to keep that in the back of our heads, as they put a blemish on their record. So going forward, I think Stephen F. Austin is a perfect. I think that's like a perfect 2 rounds for them. You see Lamar, a familiar foe. You see SFA, familiar foe. Like, yeah, I think that's pretty much like a dream matchup for them in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah, Abilene with that win over Tarleton also beat Stephen F. Austin, one of the better wins in the FCS this year, but also lost to Southern Utah and who was their other kind of weird loss was Southern Incarnate Word. They got smashed by Incarnate Word early in the season. So but I agree. I think both them and Stephen F. Austin are like happy with that matchup. I think it's that one. I'd be surprised if we'll pick them here in a bit, but I'd be surprised if the spread is over a touchdown either way. I'd be shocked if it was over a touchdown. I'd be kind of surprised if it's probably more than like a field goal one way or another. But
I think
then
that's a good get back game for both teams. Is like Abilene, they've got a little bit of momentum, a little bit of confidence right now. They're going into somebody that they've already beaten, and SFA they got to defend home against somebody who's already had their number earlier in the year. So I think that's a great plus. It finished 28-20. It wasn't like it was necessarily um, a runaway. So I think we're fixing in for a great game next week between those two.
any thoughts on that South Dakota Drake game? I think South Dakota is a team that's. I don't think they're really even necessarily near that top tier. I think they're squarely in the 2A or 1B, whatever you want to call it. But they're peaking at the right time. Like kudos to Coach Johansson and that whole crew. I don't think it would be a 24-17 game if they played UNC today. They've just steadily grown throughout the season, done everything you're supposed to do. Like mark of a good coaching staff, good program, growing throughout the season and kind of playing their best football come playoff time. So we'll see if that can materialize with a game against Mercer next week, which I think is one of the more gettable seeded teams. But any thoughts on that South Dakota Drake game?
Yeah, I think that's kind of the epitome of like a Missouri Valley versus a Pioneer League type win. I think you put Dayton there, you put Presbyterian there. It doesn't matter. It's going to come
Man,
out
remember when
about the same score.
Presbyterian was so much fun like 3 weeks ago?
Oh, so much fun. You know who else was fun? Tennessee Tech and fucking
And
Kiko's
Monmouth.
Vesperis messed that shit up. I think he had 4 interceptions and 3 fumbles. I really liked watching that game. I thought it was competitive. I thought it was back and forth. I was excited, and I think Tennessee Tech is probably my big bummer of the first round. I would say New Hampshire, but South Dakota State's found themselves again, so I feel like that's just kind of an expected loss. But yeah, I would say either Harvard or Tennessee Tech is my big bummer of the first round. And honestly, like my winner of the first round, I'd say Abilene Christian. I think like they're just getting their flowers and they have a great matchup next week and heck they have a decent chance to get to the third round of the playoffs.
No, you're 100% right. I think that's a great way to look at it. I think my winner is more in a traditional sense, where I'm going to go with Yale. First ever, awesome game, first ever Ivy League win. Just a cool moment for college football. I feel like that's something unique to the FCS playoffs. Not necessarily unique because D2, but it feels like just crazy shit like that kind of happens. It wasn't Youngstown. Did Youngstown State lose a very similar game last year? I don't think it was them, but there was a game that felt like it kind of followed this script to a lesser extent last year. Whereas you get, like, I think when you get into the FBS playoffs, since there's only 12, it's more like if a team gets you down by 3 touchdowns, you're probably going to stay down by 3 touchdowns. So there's just kind of less of that variance. And when you do get a handful of blowouts, this first weekend is typically good for some excitement like this. And I want to hold on to that in FCS football.
Yeah, I think that's very important to acknowledge. Yale got their first win, first Ivy win. Like I said, that's going to be a jab point for years to come. Who's your big disappointment besides Tennessee Tech?
You knew exactly where I was going. Nobody like stood out to me as a huge disappointment. I mean, Harvard. I guess I lied. Harvard did stand out as a huge disappointment. There was no like. I didn't have huge hopes for New Hampshire or Drake or Lamar, even Yale, really. So I'm not super surprised. Sealaw, that game wasn't a blowout, but I was hoping that one, I really wanted them to win more so than I even like thought they were going to win. But I'll say Harvard. Definitely Harvard and Tennessee Tech for me. All right, well,
No, I think
let's
that's fair.
So as we work, we haven't had this lag in a couple weeks, Ben. We're gonna have to figure out
Right.
how to bounce back and forth again. But yeah, let's pivot forward then. To playoffs week 2, we have another 8 games, and it just in perfect time here. Our pick'em has gotten tight down the stretch. Granted, we little inconsistent, missed a couple weeks there, but for all the weeks we have tracked, we are both 54 and 21 on the season, both 4 and 4 in our games of the week. So sitting tied with a cool 58 points, a pizza party, maybe some wings and Rocky Mountain oysters down at Bruce's Bar in Severance on the line. We have some good games. Ben, can you talk for a sec while I pull up the FCS or the Reddit FCS sportsbook, because I was foolish and didn't plan ahead.
Yeah, looking at the second round, we got some good matchups here. And then, Chris, we also have a very important HBCU matchup because the MEAC has already been decided. But Prairie View and Jackson State play this week for the SWAC championship to decide the other half of the Celebration Bowl. So that'll be very exciting. Prairie View, they're 9-3 on the season. Jackson State 9-2 on the season. Prairie View has had some notable wins throughout the year. I mean, like they had a great week last week, blew out Mississippi Valley State 59-6. Just a very high scoring team, high octane, not allowing a lot of points either. Like on average, allowing just under 20 points a game. And like their last couple weeks, they've allowed 10 points or less, except for when they had a freak loss to Alabama State, which also a good team, but did not find themselves in the championship. So overall, other losses that they had was a 6-point loss to UTRGV and a loss to Rice, obviously, but overall, very good season. Quarterback has 2,000 yards on the season, running back 800 yards on the season. Jackson State, they have more of a balanced approach. Got just over 1,100 yards for Morgan as their quarterback, and Andre Miller, he's over 1,000 yards, just barely at 1,008 for the year. Jackson State, looking at it, they beat Alcorn State just by 6 points this past week, so good for them. Didn't fumble down the stretch, but really kind of like a pretty good season for Jackson. They did lose to Southern Mississippi, but that's expected when in an FBS matchup. Going down through it, they did lose to Grambling. That was a tough one, but I mean, kind of every game is a little bit of a rivalry game in um, in the HBCUs, and of course there's the classics and whatnot. But Grambling has just been a tough opponent for Jackson State in the last 5 to 6 years. So overall, good on Grambling, but Jackson State and Prairie View still find themselves in the SWAC championship.
Great work, Ben. Phenomenal. We'll probably have the Celebration Bowl as our game of the week next week. Then, will that be played next week, or do they have the gap week?
I think it's a little bit later into December, but let me look that up while you do some spin zone.
Okay, yeah. Nonetheless, that will likely be our game of the week when that game does kick off. But for
A little bit
today,
later.
I
That's
have.
December 13th.
Okay, so got that week off then. But one that will not be a game of the week here this week, Ben. Illinois State heading to North Dakota State in a rematch of what was a 33-16 Bison win on October 4th. According to the r/FCS Sportsbook, North Dakota State is favored by 25.5 points.
Whoa.
Feels like
Jeez.
a lot, but I also see exactly how they could get to that number. I'm going to let you pick first, and then I know what I'm doing, I think, but I want to hear your argument to see if I can be swayed.
Golly, what was it, 25.5?
25.5. Which shows how respected North Dakota State is, for good reason, I'd say.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, like, they've earned it, but golly, that's disgusting. I was trying to do quick math. It wasn't that bad of a matchup last time they played.
No, that's like 18, 19 points, I think. Did I just make that up? 3, 15 plus 8, 17 or 18. Yeah, it wasn't 25.5.
Yeah, I feel like Illinois State has been a little bit of a changed team. Of course, don't know their injuries and whatnot as intimately as we know the Big Sky and all that jazz. But a 37-7 loss against Southern Illinois, and just this past week, only beating C-Lob by 17 points, 18 points. Math is fun in the morning, but I feel like those are some pretty disappointing results that they've had. Like the previous week, they beat a down on their luck South Dakota State team, which like we know that story. 35 points in the first half and then nothing in the second half. So even though they did, boat race them, that was a concern. So typically this has been a good team earlier in the year. Looking at some of their other stumbles, they lost to Youngstown, which, Youngstown just lost this past week. I feel like North Dakota State has the ability to do whatever they want in the first round, second round. But their first game of the playoffs, I'll take the Bison. It feels disrespectful, but
right?
all roads point towards a Bison win, and the Bison basically just getting stats and whatever they want for their win on this coming Saturday.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with you. I thought that maybe you would convince me to go against North Dakota State, but you just kind of solidified my opinion. I do think NDSU has just been a wagon, and I think actually when Illinois State caught them was, if you want to say they had a little bit of a stumble mid-season. What was that? They had, I guess that wasn't too near to the Youngstown State game that was close, but they just had a couple, I don't even say hiccups, but games that they didn't win by 40 points. So we're like, that's weird. But
And see, here's my other factor to that is that was in Illinois at the time, so they were playing in it. Yeah, it is Normal. Okay, I thought it was. They were playing in Normal Illinois instead of Fargo. I feel like this game in Fargo gets away from Illinois State for sure. Hopefully they prove us wrong and we don't have to see Bryce Lance all playoffs long, and the playoffs are a little bit of a mystery. But I don't see an upset in this game. I see pretty much North Dakota State ragdolling them however they want.
Yeah, fortunately, I guess if you're in Fargo, see it the same way. Let's move down to a game that should be closer. God, I hope it's closer. At least the spread says it's going to be. We have New Hampshire heading to UC Davis. Talk about across the country. From New
You mean
Hampshire
Rhode Island?
to yes. Sorry, Rhode
The
Island
New Hampshire
to
got mollywop this week.
yeah, that one's on me. Doesn't actually change the travel thing, because still I might actually just make it
Same area.
not a little further, but also doesn't change the spread. Funny enough, either way, UC Davis favored by 6 points over Rhode Island. Thank you, Ben.
6?
Yes, 6.
Good Lord.
Is that low or high? What did you think it was going to be, more or less?
Yeah,
I don't
I
know
think
what to
that's
think about
incredibly
UC
close.
Davis. Is the thing. I don't really know what to think about UC Davis. So I guess I'm not surprised by that spread, but also it does feel a little bit tight for this second round matchup.
Yeah, I feel like it's incredibly tight. I think Rhode Island, good team. I had them in my top 15 basically the whole year for the FCS top 25. Just for Chris's reference, New Hampshire and Rhode Island did play, and Rhode Island won 38-27. So they do have good wins over playoff teams. Actually, that's the only playoff team they played. So their resume is a little bit like but their margin of victory every week, that's what stood out to me, is like solid defense, like very like gettable offense, like putting up points. They had a stumble against Brown, which is very uncharacteristic for them. But besides that, they had one FBS loss outside of that the week before against Western Michigan. But really, any FCS team that's been put in front of them, they've just kind of systematically taken apart. And just like a good mechanic, they knew how to get their game working faster than anybody else. So it is a good matchup. Man, I just don't know about 6 points. That's pretty rough. I know we always have our reservations about UC Davis. A close game against Sac State doesn't make us feel warm and fuzzy. Kind of a disappointing output against Montana State. I don't think that we're going to pick Montana State to any degree that week, but just the fact that it was they got lapped plus 4 points, kind of hangs out in our head. The one that hangs out in my head the most is Idaho State getting that freak win. I don't know. Maybe 6 points
I
is
think
right, but the
Montana
book
State a solid team. I think Idaho State underrated in the eyes of the general public, maybe, but I get what you're saying. Just weird. I don't think I ever really learned anything about UC Davis. Like, I learned about what they are as a team. I don't know if I actually learned about how good they are as a team, even in the game against us. I agree, was hoping that Montana State game would be a little bit more competitive. I don't know. I'm almost tempted to, I think my gut is telling me UC Davis, but I'm almost tempted to pick Rhode Island just because of the rat line. And maybe UC Davis still wins, but they win by 3. But then part of me is like, this is stupid. I think UC Davis is 2 touchdowns better and probably just takes care of business. So
This one has me
what's
on
your
the fence
final
because
answer? Yeah, I'll go.
we were looking at the award winners earlier this morning, and like and some of UC Davis is on there, but I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh wow, like Rhode Island's are on there and they have better stats. The
Different
only thing that's
conference, though.
not better is the quarterback's touchdown to interception ratio, but it's damn near the same. It's 22-8 versus Penix 24-8. He does have about 900 more yards um, on the season. He also has 100 more attempts. Um, gosh, everything's leading me towards like Rhode Island can win this, but 6 points. The more that we look at it, the more this is a paper tiger matchup. Is like it could be very good on paper. I just don't know that it works out that way. I'll take Rhode Island. I don't feel good about it, but I think UC Davis's momentum makes me question them a little bit. I think they have better players, but the stats don't show that. And also, The only thing else I can hang my hat on is that UC Davis has a tougher conference, but Rhode Island also won their conference. So I'm gonna go with Rhode Island, but I don't feel good about it. Like this game, like paper tiger wise, should be as close as the line says. But also, just like you said, like, and we were talking about earlier, Big Sky versus CAA, it's closer than it has been in years past, but Big Sky is still probably better. So, what are you thinking, Chris?
I think I decided somewhere along the line that I was going to go the opposite of you because I really don't know, and I want to make it fun down the stretch here. I'll take UC Davis -6. I am leaning that way, despite like this one just feels like I don't know. It feels like a spot where because I don't know, man. I'm gonna go UC Davis and not feel good about it. I think that's where I'm settling on, and
I mean,
we
I
may
could be
figure
fixing to
like
be riding on the team that has better stats and whatnot, and be horribly disappointed, just like Tennessee Tech.
yeah, and that's what kind of gives me some pause too. Is UC Davis hasn't looked spectacular in the Big Sky, but also North Dakota didn't look spectacular all the time in the Missouri Valley. Even if they had some maybe I don't even want to say better wins, but better contests that they played in. But sliding down here, another fairly tight spread. Villanova heading to Lehigh, where Lehigh is favored by 8.5 points.
Oof. Well, I think
Oof it.
Reddit FCS is definitely getting their money's worth in the playoffs. There was definitely some rat lines in the Big Sky play. We're like, man, what? You're favoring the away team when they have a worse record? What? Um, but no, I
I mean, we
think these
saw
are
it with
pretty.
North Dakota, though. So like with
Yeah,
the
these are
road
pretty
team with the
stout.
worst record.
8.5 points, huh? Um, I'll take it. I'll take Lehigh. They had a good season. They beat Richmond early on, kind of set the tone. They did play a couple Ivies. They played Penn, beat them 44-30. They beat Yale 31-13. Of course, Yale might not have been in their playoff mindset on October 4th, but Lehigh's never faltered this season, and even when they did, it was like their stumble was a 10-point win over Lafayette, who was a fringe top 25 team.
And isn't that's the oldest rivalry in the country too, right? So like
It's literally called the rivalry.
that's like the rivalry game you always have to kind of maybe just throw those away. But I'm with you. Winning all your games has to mean something. And Lehigh won all their games. I'm with you. I'll take them minus the 8.5. And if I look stupid, then I can at least look stupid on principle. Uh, moving down the
Yeah, the,
list
the
here,
only
we
thing that
have
like makes me pause because like Villanova does have technically a better resume. If you want to get petty, like technically they do. Um, but all their stuff was early on in the year, and I feel like if they played Monmouth, or well, they did lose to Monmouth, but like they beat William and Mary. You play them later in the year. That was a top 25 fringe team for me. They beat New Hampshire by 30 points, but I don't think that happens later in the year. Um, I think Villanova's peaking at the right time. I just don't think it's enough.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I've been low on Villanova all season, and it hasn't necessarily paid off for me. But I think I've been both justified and proven wrong, kind of holding that opinion. So I feel good with Lehigh minus 8.5. I'm with you there, Ben. One that is not very close, and I unfortunately don't think will be too close. Is like you Montana State ruining probably the feel good moment of the first round as Lehigh. It is early, damn. As Yale comes to town and the Bobcats are favored by 20 points. Ben, a cool just under 3 touchdown favorites are Montana State taking in their Ivy League brethren from across the country. I'll tell you right now,
Yeah,
I'm picking Montana State. This one, I don't have to think too hard about this one. I feel Yale maybe kind of blew their load here in the first round, going down by 30, then coming back. I think it's awesome story. They're going to get to Montana State. It won't be too cold for them necessarily, but a long way from home, long road trip, team that's just bigger, tougher, more physical, better than them. I think this is where their season comes to an end.
Yeah, I'm sure their season comes to an end. 20 points. I feel like there's maybe some fight in them. Maybe they can
They showed that
be a
last
little
week
bit
or yesterday.
right. Maybe they can make it spicy. I don't know. I'm not sold on the 20 points. Also, it should be snowing and 37, Chris. So the whole like warmer
But
thing, like warmer for this time of year for sure, but
well,
maybe
it's
not a
not
warm game.
not warm, but not too cold for Yale coming from the Northeast. That's my first thought whenever somebody goes to the Montanas. I'm like, it's going to be cold, but they're probably in a spot where it's already been cold at home.
That's true. They might not have had an ice storm yet, but they will. Um, I feel like the weather could affect this one a little bit, so I'm not loving the 20 points, but I'm pretty sure Montana State's going to have 20 points in the first quarter. So we'll just go with Justin Lampton and company.
I don't feel good about this one. I want to say that Yale will win, but I just
I feel like there's going to be some
I've been
garbage time points that maybe affects the spread.
maybe I don't know. I think Montana State is like the only grasping hope the FCS fandom has to not letting NDSU win another natty. So I think I just need to convince myself that they're really good, and I think they are really good. I don't think they're NDSU good, but if they win by 40 here against Yale, maybe the hype starts to build a little bit, and uh, we can actually have some intrigue going down the playoff bracket. But
I
this
think
one
they're really
doesn't
good
need it.
too. I think the only thing that kind of like is my reservation of why they wouldn't score more than 20 is that they just kind of take it easy. They just kind of like they're like, hey, let's not get too crazy in the first round. Let's not like throw any hospital balls to anybody. Let's not get anybody just murdered on a screen pass. Let's just keep it simple and just beat them by as much as we have to. So that's the only reason I think this game could very easily be 66-10. But yeah, that's just my one thing in the back of my mind is, are they going to, just hold a little bit back just so everybody's like a little bit healthier?
That's not a bad thought, and you're right. They have kind of taken their foot off the gas throughout the season when they have a comfortable lead. They don't. I mean, I think they smashed Eastern, but they don't have like the just 55-7, 55-10. Which they could. So I think that's a
Yeah, they're
great
not one of
point.
the softer
And
teams that plays in a dome.
and then also that like this with the dome, the snow, weird shit happens when it's snowy and icy. I think it probably favors Montana State because I'd imagine they're more than happy to hand it off 45 times. But it could slow the game down, not as much scoring. So that's a good point. I think I was a little too confident. We'll see how it plays out, but I'm still feeling good on Montana State. But you've convinced me a bit that may be worth tuning into. But Abilene Christian at SF Austin, as we talked about, that this one should definitely be worth tuning into. And Abilene won that first game by 8, and they are favored by 3 heading to Nacogdoches here this
Oh,
weekend.
is this our first away team favored? I know we
Oh,
didn't have spreads for the first round because we're both kind of like all over the state and whatnot, but at least our first away spread as we're picking it because we picked money line last week. Um,
and still went 4-4 because we suck.
well, I think we're a little hopeful about a couple teams, but yeah, um, yeah, I'll roll with it. I feel like four's a healthy number. Um, SF Austin, such a good team, ten and
It's
two.
3. Not that it matters that much, but it's 3. Just if that
Yeah,
changes your
that's not going to
decision
factor
making
into
at
it
all.
for me. Um, I like everything that SF Austin did. There's absolutely no reason to necessarily pick against them. I like Abilene Christian's body of work a little bit better. SF Austin did beat Lamar 26-15 just about 2 weeks ago, so frame of reference there. But yeah, the head-to-head plus Abilene just having like some really gritty wins. I don't think the Southern Utah loss is a bad one. I know Southern Utah looked bad records-wise, but they probably played, again, the Massey rating didn't show it. I think they played one of the hardest schedules in the entire country. Like versus like, I'm taking Abilene. Yeah, I would take Abilene, even if it was a touchdown.
Let's see, to this one, if it was a touchdown, I would definitely take SF Austin. It feels like a very much a toss-up to me. And it feels like, which is great. That's exactly what I want out of as the playoffs get moving. Oh man, I want to pick SF Austin to go to give it a little intrigue and pick against you here, but I think I just want Abilene. Abilene's ceiling is higher. I think it'll be more fun down the stretch if Abilene does win this one. I do think SF Austin more consistent. I think I've kind of thought of Abilene as the better team throughout the season. So it pains me. I'm gonna go Abilene -3. But you know what? Actually, I'm going SF Austin. Screw it. I wanted to stick with you, Ben, but I can't. I think I could just see myself betting this game on the SF Austin side come game day. So with that in mind, I'm gonna take SF Austin.
I was gonna try to talk you into it because I don't believe in them as much. I think their strength of schedule might be a little bit less. But yeah, if you're gonna willingly take them, that's fine.
Okay, so here are two that I feel the last two I feel fairly convicted about. To the point where I may parlay a couple money lines together to get a big payout here. Let's start in order. South Dakota heading to Mercer. Mercer an 8.5-point favorite, and I think that is ludicrous. And I would probably bet on South Dakota if South Dakota was favored by a field goal in this game.
8.5. Yeah, that's a head scratcher to me. Literally.
What did Mercer do all season besides almost come back after falling down by 4 touchdowns to UC Davis in week 1? Before that one was
so we'll scratch that because everybody, I think it's 7. Well, it might be 60-40, but that's probably just because we're in Big Sky country. I'd say it's 70-30. People believed Mercer was going to win that game. I still think UC Davis, still having Rex Connors and whatnot, I think they had a chance to win that game. Then they lose to Presbyterian. That looked pretty solid at the time. Now that we're at the playoffs, it's like, it's a good team, but still suspect because of the league they come from. Looking at it, ETSU, that's always a good win. They only did it by 4, though. A little bit of a down year for ETSU. Looking at the rest of their schedule, I don't consider Furman a good win. A lot of people, that's one of the South's love childs of just like, oh, Furman, they're always good. Well, kind of, but the margin of victory there was very good, 52-28. Western Carolina, that was kind of like one of my darlings. I was hoping that they were going to beat Mercer and be able to make a push where there would be 3 teams from the Southern Conference to make it in. That did not happen. That was a barn burner, 49-47. Chattanooga, historically good. This year, kind of meh at 5-6. And then they were leading Auburn in the first quarter. But that game did end up 62-17. So ultimately, Mercer is a good team. They deserve to be in the playoffs. I don't know if they deserve to be an auto bid or a first round bye. I think there's a lot of conversation, a lot of controversy, especially by the coaches from Tennessee Tech being how do we deserve to play in the first round at 11-2? And I think we saw. I think that was definitely proven to us by North Dakota. But overall, I think this is it's a controversial one where Mercer maybe shouldn't have been a pick. I'm going to roll with South Dakota regardless. And this is going to be for our coach who is no longer here. I'm going to Bruce Barnum it and pick South Dakota because it makes UNC look better at the end of the year.
I love it, Ben. We will always honor Barney here. With shout out, we talked about that. I think it was in the Bear With Us last week, but the sentiment has rallied around Bruce Barnum is that Portland State's stupid, and like this guy, even though they won one game, he's basically coaching with an arm and both his legs tied behind his back. So you're
Yeah, as
basically
much as
getting out
we
of it
are
what you're going to
handicapped
put
by
into it.
infrastructure and regionality and just local FCS or FBS competition and whatnot, I think Portland is in the same boat, but they have money, or at least the city has money, and it's just
Okay, yeah,
like
I was
it's
like, I don't think the school has
yeah,
money.
the school not so much. Like it definitely goes to the Pilots. It does not go to the Vikings, but even so, it's like it's even more of a sad scenario because like it could be different very very quickly if there's just a rally, a local support. But yeah, hats off to Brucey. Getting fired on the tarmac and being told to find a way home is awful for anybody. Let's just do it like professionals, boys, and just have a Black Monday.
Yes, seriously. But another game, I think I said I South Dakota. I'm picking them. I agree. I'm one of the people who doesn't think Mercer should have had a seed. I think South Dakota. I think they could have just swapped spots and it would have been more just had South Dakota not played last weekend and had this bye. But nonetheless, I will take the money that I deem to be free, but then we'll end up losing come Saturday. But
Yeah, I think South Dakota's resume is a little fluky, but like ultimately, their fluky resume has more strength to it than Mercer's weird rain delay. Even if Mercer won that UC Davis game, that doesn't tip my opinion.
yeah, they 1-2 against non-SoCon teams was Mercer. So one of those losses coming against the Pioneer League team with Presbyterian, who say what you want about them, but they ended up not making the playoffs and not really making a wave of any real sort.
Right.
But
Well, and Chris, I'm gonna put you on a quick detour. Let's put an additional game in our pickings this week, just to mess things up. Let's pick the SWAC championship. So if you have that on r/Reddit or the Reddit pick
what?
lines,
Who's in that one?
Prairie View and Jackson State.
Where's it at?
Jackson State. At least I believe. Yep.
Okay, Jackson State by 8.5.
I thought that was going to be more interesting. I'm cool rolling with Jackson State 8.5. I feel like a 9-2 versus a 9-3 team, 8.5 seems a little wonky, but that's just me personally.
Yeah, I I'm not gonna lie to you, Ben. I saw that Prairie View A&M was in this title game, and I was like, I didn't know that they. I knew they had a football team. I just assumed they were awful at everything, to be honest. So shout out to Prairie View A&M. I'm gonna take. I'll take Jackson State because they've seemed much more relevant this year as somebody who isn't very locked into the HBCU football realm. Jackson State's been a team that's had some national relevance, even beyond just Coach Prime being there a few years ago. They've been consistently ranked this season. A home game, I don't like you said, don't love the 8.5 point spread against same conference teams with like records, but I'll take Jackson State here as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, this conference is split up because the MEAC had a bit of a implosion after North Carolina A&T left for the CAA a couple years ago. So unfortunately, this is an East and West conference. Otherwise, it would be a very interesting game between Jackson State and Alabama State. Those two teams played earlier in the year, and I believe it was 38-34. Let me just check my math. Yeah, 38-34 Jackson. So that is why Jackson State is playing this game over Alabama State is because those two are the same side of that division. They're both on the east side, and also people who are clamoring for why isn't Alabama State in the playoffs? Literally just because of scheduling. Alabama State might have been invited to the playoffs if they just played Tuskegee a week before, which sucks because it's not even a D1 team. It's just a very important game culturally that they played Tuskegee. But unfortunately, if that was just scheduled a week earlier or shifted somewhere in the season or they just didn't play, yeah, Alabama State Hornets might have gotten an invite. I don't know if 10-2 is enough because obviously we saw Presbyterian miss out with only 2 losses, but they could have been at least a first 4 out.
That's a good point because you're right. I think it would have been one of those teams where the fans would have just liked to see them in the bracket. Even if they,
yeah. Even if they got
you have a
smoked
little
by
wiggle
a
room with
thousand.
some of those. Yeah.
I think
Okay. Good call.
the closest loss a couple years ago was I think it was North Carolina A&T or North Carolina Central at Richmond, and it was 38-14. So unfortunately,
Okay.
they don't have their first. Well, they do have a win, but it's ages ago. So, and it was against Richmond, I believe. So, love to see the HBCUs back in the playoffs. But, Chris, we have kind of an early Christmas present since somebody's team was very naughty these last couple weeks, and they earned themselves a trip to Missoula.
Yeah, I this one fills my heart with joy to see Montana have to play South Dakota State, a South Dakota State team that seems to have kind of figured some stuff out after Mason goes down. For some reason their defense also just pretends they're all injured as well and forgot how to stop anybody. But seeming to have be riding the ship and with a juicy 6.5 point dogs are the Jacks, which who knows the last time they were that big of an underdog. It's probably been
Hmm.
4 years, like prior to the um because I doubt even against NDSU last year they were more than 6.
I
It
believe in
has to be
the
before
marker
the
games it was
national
around
titles.
3.5.
Yeah, so I'm going to make it easy. I think SDSU wins this one outright. And if you've listened, you've heard my Montana hate all season, so that's probably not going to be a surprise to you. But very unfortunate draw for the Grizz. Fuck them, but very unfortunate draw. So I'm gonna go with South Dakota State plus 6.5 here.
All right. Well, we're picking different, so that's fun.
Okay.
6.5 worries me because if this gets sketchy late in the game, I could lose it even if the Grizz win it. Um, but yeah, I don't believe in South Dakota State one bit. I think Chase Mason, is he healthy? Is he not healthy? Where's he at? Just this dude can't. He's not a threat through the air. I'm not gonna say he can't throw the ball, but he's not a threat through the air. I just don't believe that South Dakota State has the longevity, the health, or the creativity to get past Missoula. I'm gonna rain on your parade all day long. Is that he's up for the Walter Payton. Michael Wortham, he's up for Offensive Player of the Year. Eli Gilman should be on the list, but Craig Haley's a hater. Just across the board, Missoula has talent, whether we like it or not. And I wouldn't have picked Ayat to throw 3,154 yards this season. His interceptions still lacking. He still isn't a full developed product as a passer. Still, 25 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. But I'll take that. That's still a 3-to-1 ratio. That's still it's good enough to be a starter. Eli Gilman, not necessarily taking the world by storm, but still 1,200 yards on the ground, 17 touchdowns. That's hard to account for. Whether or not he's having a good year or a bad year, otherwise, if that's his bad year, that's crazy. Michael Wortham, he's just an overall all conference Swiss utility knife. He's got 825 yards and 7 touchdowns, but also he's horribly dangerous in any of the return games. And also he has a rushing touchdown on the year. He's not afraid to just be a team player and just get in some crazy plays and whatnot. I don't think we're going to see a lot of defense on this. So really the thing that The only thing I think that Montana loses this is if they have a lot of turnovers.
That's fair. I'm going off of vibes here mostly, and you laid out a very fact heavy case that I can't argue with too terribly much. The one fact I will
I
throw at
mean,
you is
South Dakota
Chase.
State, like they're one of the most winningest teams in the last 10 years. Like ESPN put up a graphic. Of course, it was during their down week, which was kind of a kick in the face. But they are the sixth winningest team out of all of Division One. Like they had like 104 wins over 10 years.
Yeah, not surprised at all. If anything, I'm maybe more surprised that they weren't higher on that list. But you're right, great program, great culture. Even with Stig leaving and Jimmy Rogers heading to Washington State last year. But Chase Mason, I will push back a bit. 16-20 for 230 yards and 3 touchdowns in the snow last week. So not bad for a guy who's not a threat through the air. But I get what you're saying. And you're right. Montana's probably the more talented team. They should win. They're at home. I think they've it feels so fucking stupid to say they've underperformed it at 12-1.
Say it, Chris. Say it. You're hating.
11-1, but they have they barely snuck by. Not barely snuck by. We're losing to Idaho State by 10 in the fourth quarter. At Cal Poly, they were down at halftime. They're like a team that plays with their food, and if they play with their food against South Dakota State, they may end up in a deficit that they can't dig themselves out of. And then if they lose this year, next year they'll get all the Portland State guys out of the portal, and whatever fucking Idaho guys are pissed off because their coach is a jackass, and they'll get all the rest of the conference guys, and they'll be in this exact same spot next year where I'm talking shit about them.
It.
Yeah.
I've already seen come to Missoula from the frenzied fans. They're just like, come here.
Better get ready to learn Montana, buddy.
Yes,
I've seen that one a lot.
You've seen it too. I mean, like even the failed spike to stop the clock and Eastern Washington on the 5. Like, did Eastern Washington score? No. Could they have? Yes. Definitely some like what if moments. Here's another what if moment. Ayat doesn't throw a pick 6 to Caden Dowler, and Montana State is looking at being 28-24, coming back trying to win the Brawl of the Wild, and like, does Justin Lamson and Adam Jones and company have enough on the last drive? I don't know. Like, we'll never know, but like, we do know the Bobcats got out of Missoula with the trophy and with a 3-point win. But if we're saying Montana State's the second best team in the country, this is obviously the third best team.
Yeah, you're right. And that's why I think it is a 2-horse race. I think on a neutral field or in Bozeman, which would be where it would be played if there's a rematch, I think Montana State is I think they handle business more easily. You never know though with a rivalry game, even if it's not officially the Brawl of the Wild. The Montana State playing will just make weird shit happen. So you're right. I think they are. I speak out of both sides of my mouth here because they are the third best team in the country. I think without a doubt, resume wise, do I think they could lose to any of the top 25 teams? Maybe not quite, but I think there are a good 20 teams out there that could beat Montana on any given day. And I think what pisses me off is that it has not happened one single time. So maybe I'm wrong, and maybe maybe Montana's just that team they're like that Florida State Jameis Winston team that year that they kept winning by like 2 points somehow, and everybody's like, what the fuck? But that Jameis Winston team ran into Ohio State in the playoffs, and I think this South Dakota State team's going to be their Ohio State.
Well, and here's a little bit of padding for your argument is they had 8 home games. That's not very hard on your body. I mean, like having to be at home, just throw on your pads in the locker room and walk out to the field. Boo-hoo. You had a strength of schedule that was pretty sad, outside of Big Sky play. I mean, Sacred Heart
even
looked like it was going to be an interesting game, and it wasn't. So yeah, like there's a counter argument for it. I just don't know that it's so much of a counter argument that it favors the Jacks at any point.
That's a good. Yeah, you're right. And I've been proven wrong by Montana every step along the way. Maybe not last week in the Brawl of the Wild, but um, even even then, I thought it was. I did not think it was going to be that close, and I did not expect to have to sweat it out so much. So the Grizz have proven me wrong. I won't be surprised if they prove me wrong again here. But I mean, I've dug my heel as it takes me digging my heels in harder and harder at every turn for them to keep proving me wrong. So I'm just giving them another opportunity here in week 2 of the playoffs.
Here's one more mental gymnastics for you. If because both teams definitely have had like quarterback issues of like Mason even just being healthy. I got throwing some picks that he definitely shouldn't have. If both teams didn't have their starting quarterback, who
Ooh,
are you choosing?
see, that's weird because I think I'm choosing South. I'm choosing Montana, but also I think Ayat's a better quarterback than Chase Mason. But it feels like with Mason out, this whole South Dakota State team just fell apart, and like it seemed like they kind of lost faith where they were like, without this guy in there, I don't think we can win. Whereas Montana, I think they're used to the quarterbacks getting jerked around, where this year it's been Ayat's team for really the entire way through, but the last three, Ayat started games 2 years ago and last year. Like he played against UNC at Nottingham, or not at Nottingham, in Montana, I believe, when we had Jacob Sermon on the. Like it's crazy that Ayat's been kind of sitting in the wings waiting, and they. I guess I think Montana's more used to instability at quarterback than South Dakota State is, and I think they'd be able to kind of recover better, even though I think Ayat's the better quarterback. Where would you go with that scenario?
Yeah, I definitely think like it's going to rely on the ground game. If they get bad weather or anything like that, and I'm gonna take Gilman, and that's not just to be a Craig Haley hater, um, but yeah, I think overall like Montana's product is very solid on all sides of the ball, but specifically offense and special teams. I think they just have a few more check marks than that, and it's unfortunate that South Dakota State screwed up their last couple of weeks of their season by not being able to improvise. But at the same time, it kind of sucks for Montana. Like usually your first round bye is supposed to come with a nice little, pre-tenderized meal for you, like Montana State getting Yale. But, didn't work out this year.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a tougher. Like it's more unfortunate for Montana than South Dakota State this draw because while if South Dakota State would have got like a Mercer, then we're like, oh, cool, they're um, back in the quarters again. But they also like they didn't really deserve to have an easy draw, dropping 4 games there, kind of late or 3 games late in the season was one. Nonetheless, they lost more than they should have lost, so I don't really feel bad for them. As much as it is tough for me, I do kind of feel bad for Montana on this draw. Even though I think you're right, and they probably do handle business. They've shown themselves the better team basically all season. But it's enough that makes me kind of. If I was a Montana fan, I'd be much more worried than I would be about a normal 14 coming in.
See, and here's another fun fact. If both Montanas get past their team this week and next week, we could have a second Brawl of the Wild in the playoffs.
Yeah, that'd be fun. It should have been like yeah, that'd be fun. Has that happened? It feels like it should happen pretty regularly, but I can't actually like think of any times that it
I
has.
can't place it. We'll have to drum up the Montana base. I'm sure they know, and they'll give us a hard
Yeah,
time for not knowing, but they should know. The only
but if
bummer is like I almost wish that Montana State could have been um, on North Dakota State side, so that we could have had Brawl of the Wild in the FCS championship. But that's just a very big sky of me to say.
that
I think
also
it's still North
requires
Dakota State's world, and we're
beating,
just living in it.
yeah,
But having
I
Brawl of
think
the
that
Wild
would
in the
result
playoffs
in
would be
not
sick.
having Bro. Yeah, no, I agree. I think if Montana State was on NDSU's side, it would lead to not having Brawl of the Wild in the playoffs because they would lose in
Probably.
that semi round. But no, I get what you're saying. That'll be, dude.
But
I hope it is, and
if
I
we get
hope
that
it's in
far,
Bozeman,
it will be
and I
because
hope
of seeding. So literally, Brawl of
I
the
hope
Wild
it's
will have happened once each.
I hope it's so snowy that like the cameras are barely picking anything up, and I hope both teams don't have fun. But it'll be great for me watching from home because I love watching like finely tuned athletes struggle so much to get any. You know when they like can't even really run because the snow's too deep. That's what I want to see in Brawl of the Wild 2.0 if it comes to fruition.
That's fair. I want to see like a 5 overtime battle of just them doing tush
Ooh.
pushes back and forth and like who crumples first.
That's good old Smash Mouth Montana football right there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well that I think that'll do it for us here. That was a pretty interesting first week. Hopefully, have a couple. There are a couple more games that I'm pointing to directly and being like, this will be more fun than any of the matchups round one. Yale, toss that one aside because that's just a crazy situation. But no, I'm really excited that Tarleton. Honestly, the last three we talked about, including the Prairie View A&M at Jackson State game, or the last four if you include that one, I'm really excited about this week. I think some of those top games, Rhode Island at UC Davis could also be good, but the Abilene at SF Austin and then South Dakota State and South Dakota games are those ones I'm going to be appointment viewing if I or watching them like on my phone in between different stuff at the UNC basketball game that night. Nonetheless, it'll actually UNC's playing South Dakota, so if that's the case, I may not be the only one checking checking the score on my phone during that game.
Yeah, I was gonna say like looks like time wise, Rhode Island, UC Davis 8, and then
Oh, they do have a night like they spread them out this next week. That's good.
just one though.
Just one,
One
yeah.
10 o'clock, and then some 11 o'clocks, and then 12 o'clock, and then 8 p.m. Like, wish we could have like NFL'd it a little bit. Be like 2 10s, 2 12s, a 2, a 4, and like an 8.
Yeah, if I had actually that UC Davis Rhode Island game maybe favored UC Davis a little bit heavier than I thought if they're kicking off at 10 p.m. Eastern time for Lehigh. That might actually be something to think about. Or not Lehigh, Rhode Island. One of these days,
Right.
Ben, I'll actually get the team playing in that game right.
One of these days, Chris will actually respect the teams playing.
But as always,
and then
if you like,
somebody next week gets an awful Friday draw. So there's one Friday game and 3 Saturday games.
oh yeah, I remember that being a thing last year that all the teams were like going to be who I don't remember who got it, but everybody was pissed that it was going to be them, and then it was kind of whatever because it was the game that everybody watched because it was on a Friday when no other football was happening. Yeah, who does get that poor draw on the semis?
I don't know. It just has blanks on it, so I don't know how they determine that. If it's like lowest remaining high seed.
Interesting. Huh. Well, I think that'll do it for us here. As always, if you like what we're doing, please like, comment, subscribe, review. If you don't like what we're doing, Ben's inbox is always open. That Bear Claw Media complaints department is at Bear Claw Media on Twitter. He's got those dukes already, so have a good one.